My name is Carolina Mendez, and what I'm about to share with you isn't just a story. It's a miracle wrapped in pain, courage, and undeniable faith. Just days ago, I survived something most people never live to talk about: a plane crash. The emotions are still raw, the bruises haven't faded, and yet here I am, alive, breathing, and forever changed. I'm not here to go viral or gain sympathy. I'm here because I owe this testimony to the one who pulled me out from the fire, and to the people who deserve to know what really happened that day. If you've ever doubted that life can change in an instant, let this be your wake-up call. Listen closely. This isn't just survival, it's divine purpose. The morning started like any other. Calm. Almost too calm. I remember waking up that day with a strange tension in my chest. Something I couldn't quite explain. I chalked it up to nerves. After all, I've never been a fan of flying. I packed my bag like I always do. Passport, snacks, headphones, a book I'd been meaning to finish. I kissed my mother goodbye and told her I'd call as soon as I landed. She smiled, unaware that this might have been our last moment together. Looking back, it's eerie how ordinary everything seemed. That's the thing about life. It rarely warns you before it turns itself upside down. At the airport, things felt slightly off. The flight was delayed and no one gave us a clear reason why. People were growing restless, and I noticed the flight attendants whispering more than usual. I kept watching their faces, trying to read their expressions. Were they just tired? Or did they know something we didn't? My gut was screaming that something wasn't right. Still, I boarded the plane, telling myself I was just being paranoid. I sat by the window, seat 14A, and tried to calm my breathing. If only I had trusted my instincts. If only someone had spoken up. As we sat on the tarmac, I texted my fiancé, Diego. "Plane's finally moving," I wrote. "See you soon, love." But something made me add another message, one I'd never sent before. "If anything happens, just know I love you." I don't even remember typing it. My hands moved on their own, guided by something beyond me. He replied with a question mark and a laughing emoji. I never got to respond. Moments later, the engine groaned in a way I'd never heard before. And then we lifted off into what would become the longest, most terrifying minutes of my life. Not even 2 minutes into the air, the turbulence hit us like a freight train. The plane shook violently, lights flickered, and people started screaming. I clutched the armrests and tried to pray, but no words came out. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear the crew. "Remain calm," they shouted. "Everything is under control." But it wasn't. I could see the panic in their eyes. I looked out the window and saw smoke trailing from the wing. My stomach dropped. We weren't going to make it. I knew it. We all did. What do you do when death is staring you in the face? Everything slows down. Your life doesn't flash before your eyes like they say. Instead, it fragments. Flashes of childhood, laughter, regrets. I saw my father, who passed away years ago. I saw my little brother riding his bike for the first time. I saw Diego, holding my hand at the beach. And then I saw darkness. Everything went black. No sound, no light, just cold silence. I didn't know if I had died. All I remember is the feeling of falling and the final thought that maybe, just maybe, this was the end. I woke up to the smell of salt water and blood. My ears were ringing, my vision blurry. I was lying on a bed of sharp rocks, soaked in fuel, my leg twisted in a way it shouldn't be. The wreckage was scattered around me, fire licking at metal, people crying out for help. Some didn't make it. Others, like me, were caught somewhere between life and death. I couldn't move. Every breath hurt, but I was alive. Somehow, I was alive. I didn't understand it then. I still don't, but I would come to believe it was more than luck. It was purpose. I had been spared for a reason. If you're watching this or reading this, don't scroll past like it's just another story. This is real. This happened, and it can happen to anyone. You don't need to be religious to understand the power of survival, but I'm telling you, there is something greater than us. Something that watches over us when logic fails. I should have died that day, but I didn't. And now, I have a responsibility to speak, to warn, to awaken. So before you hop on your next flight, or wave goodbye like it's just another day, pause, look around, say what you need to say. Tomorrow isn't promised. When the rescue teams arrived, I couldn't tell how much time had passed. Minutes, hours. It felt like an eternity. My body was numb, but my mind was racing. I remember the sound of boots crunching on the gravel, shouts in the distance, the clatter of metal being moved. Someone found me and yelled for help. I wanted to respond, but my throat was too dry, my voice too weak. They carried me out with such urgency, as if every second counted. And it did. I later found out I had internal bleeding and a fractured pelvis. Had they been even a little later, I might not be here telling you this. In the ambulance, the pain finally hit me like a tidal wave. Every inch of my body screamed. I could feel broken bones grinding against each other, but the emotional pain was worse. I kept asking about the others. Did everyone make it? Where's the man who sat next to me? The paramedic looked at me with a silence that said everything. I closed my eyes and prayed, not for myself, but for the families whose lives had just been shattered. It's easy to think you're strong, until you realize strength isn't loud. Sometimes it's lying there, helpless, but still breathing. At the hospital, everything became a blur of beeping machines, cold metal tables, and the smell of antiseptic. They rushed me into surgery, and I remember signing a form with trembling hands, not even reading what it said. What choice did I have? It was survival mode now. When I woke up, my mother was there, sobbing by my bed. She held my hand and kept whispering, "Thank you, God. Thank you." I couldn't respond. Not yet. The words were buried beneath the weight of trauma, but her presence anchored me. Sometimes the only thing more powerful than medicine is love. The days that followed were some of the darkest. I couldn't walk. I couldn't eat without help. I cried silently at night, not just from pain, but from survivor's guilt. Why me? Why was I spared while others weren't? I had no answers, only questions that twisted in my chest like a knife. But amid the despair, something stirred, a flicker of resolve. If I had been given a second chance, it couldn't be wasted. I couldn't just lie there and exist. I had to speak. I had to heal. I had to turn my pain into a platform. If you're hearing this, maybe you're standing at the edge of your own darkness. Don't step back. Lean in. People began reaching out. Friends, strangers, even the media. Everyone wanted to know what happened on that flight. But what they really wanted was hope. They wanted proof that miracles still happen. That tragedy doesn't get the final word. And I realized something. This story isn't just mine. It belongs to anyone who's ever been knocked down and wondered if they'd get back up. It belongs to the mothers praying over hospital beds, the fathers working 2 jobs to pay medical bills, the lovers who wait by the phone, praying it rings. So if that's you, hold on. This story is for you. The company that owned the plane never called. Not once. No apology, no accountability, nothing. They left us to deal with the wreckage, literal and emotional, on our own. I'm saying this publicly because silence protects no one. We deserve answers. We deserve responsibility. Too many lives were lost for this to be brushed under the rug. If you've ever been wronged by a system that values profits over people, you know what I'm talking about. We have to speak up, even when our voices shake, especially then, because the truth can't heal if it stays hidden. So here I am, not just a survivor, but a voice, a witness, a warning. I don't care if this video reaches millions or just one person. If it reaches you, if it stirs something inside you, then I've done my part. Let this testimony be a mirror, a call, a reminder that life is fragile, but faith is fierce. That the worst day of your life could be the doorway to your purpose. Don't wait for disaster to find your voice. Speak now, live now, love harder, because one day it might all come down to a single moment, and you'll want to know that you lived it fully. I wish I could say healing was quick, that after the surgeries and the tears, I suddenly felt whole again. But healing doesn't follow a straight line. Some days I felt powerful, alive with purpose. Other days I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror without crying. I had nightmares of fire and falling, of screaming passengers and the sound of metal twisting in the air. I woke up drenched in sweat, my heart racing like I was still trapped in that plane. Trauma doesn't disappear just because you're physically out of danger. It burrows deep and waits until you're quiet to speak. Therapy helped. Slowly, I started meeting with a trauma counselor who understood aviation disasters. She didn't pressure me to talk. She just listened. And one day, I told her about the moment I thought I was going to die, the second I let go of control and surrendered to whatever came next. She looked at me and said, "That was the moment you were reborn." I didn't understand it then, but now, I see it clearly. I didn't just survive the crash. I emerged from it with a new soul. The old me died with that plane. What rose was someone who no longer takes a single breath for granted. I began to write, pages and pages of everything I was afraid to say out loud. Memories, regrets, prayers. I filled journals with pieces of my soul, and the more I wrote, the lighter I felt. Like each word released a piece of the pain I had buried. Eventually, I shared one of my entries on social media. I hesitated before posting. What if people didn't understand? What if they judged me? But the response was overwhelming. People from all over the world wrote back. Survivors of other tragedies. Families who had lost loved ones in accidents. Strangers who just needed hope. My pain became a bridge. I started speaking at small gatherings, churches, community groups. I was terrified the first time I stood in front of a crowd. My hands shook, my voice cracked. But the moment I started speaking, something shifted. People cried, people nodded, people leaned in. That's when I realized my story had power, not because it was dramatic, but because it was real. And real stories change people. They remind us we're not alone, that we all carry invisible wounds, and that maybe, just maybe, those wounds can become windows. One day, I got an email from a woman in Colombia. She had lost her husband in a similar crash and had never talked about it publicly. After watching one of my videos, she finally sat down with her children and told them everything. She said it was the hardest conversation of her life, but also the most healing. That message broke me in the best way. It reminded me why I keep telling this story, even when it hurts. Because healing doesn't just happen in hospitals. It happens in connection, in honesty, in the quiet courage to say, "This happened, and I'm still here." To anyone watching this who's carrying their own wreckage, whether it's physical, emotional, or spiritual, I see you. Maybe your crash wasn't in the sky. Maybe it was a divorce, a diagnosis, a betrayal, a failure. Whatever it was, it broke you. And maybe you're still lying in the rubble wondering if you'll ever rise again. You will. I promise you, you will. But not by pretending you're fine. Not by silencing your pain. You rise by speaking, by reaching, by refusing to stay buried in the wreckage. Let my survival remind you of your own strength. Let this testimony be your spark. And if you're wondering what to do next, start small. Call someone you love and tell them the truth. Write down the thing you've been afraid to face. Look in the mirror and say, "I'm not done." Because you're not. Your story isn't over. The chapter might be messy, but it's still being written. And sometimes the most broken pages become the most beautiful. Don't give up. Don't fade out. If you're still breathing, there's still purpose in your lungs. So breathe deep, stand tall, and walk forward, even if you limp. I don't know why I was chosen to survive that day, but I do know this. Survival comes with responsibility. I was pulled from the wreckage for more than just another chance to live. I was pulled out to speak, to warn, to love louder, and to walk in obedience. Maybe you're hearing this for a reason. Maybe you've been drifting through life, numbing yourself, ignoring the still small voice calling your name. Don't wait for a crash to wake up. Don't wait for the fire to remember the flame of purpose inside you. This is your invitation to rise before you fall. If this story reached your heart, then do something with it. Don't just scroll. Don't just forget. Share it with someone who needs hope, someone who's hurting, someone who thinks it's too late. And if you haven't yet, I'm asking you, no, I'm pleading with you. Subscribe to this channel and follow Jesus. Not religion, not rules. A relationship with the one who saves, even in the darkest places. He was with me in the fire. He is with you right now. And he's not done writing your story. Too many of us are walking around with silent wounds, pretending we're fine, smiling through pain. Let this space, this channel, this community be different. Let it be a place where brokenness is welcome, where testimonies are sacred, where healing is real. Every time you engage, every time you comment or share or simply listen, you help someone else breathe again. So turn on notifications, stay connected, and be a part of something bigger than yourself. I'm not here because I'm strong. I'm here because God is good. And if He can lift me from ashes, He can lift you too. So I encourage you, give your life to Him today. Don't wait. Don't hesitate. Say yes to the one who gave everything for you. If you need help, if you have questions, reach out in the comments. You're not alone. This isn't the end. It's a beginning. There's no rewind button on life. But there is redemption, there is purpose, and there is power in your yes. So say it today. Say it out loud. Say, Jesus, I'm yours. And then walk like you believe it. I'm walking with you, step by step, scar by scar, miracle by miracle. Thank you for listening. Thank you for letting me be part of your journey. I don't take it for granted. Whether you're watching from your bedroom, your hospital room, or your car parked on the side of the road, you matter. You're seen. You're loved. And you are still here for a reason. Until next time, take care of your soul. Keep your heart open. And never forget, the same God who saved me can save you too. I love you all. Stay close, stay grounded, and stay with us on this journey of faith, healing, and truth.